Vision and vibes. Take one.
All right. Let's get into it, y'all. I'm excited because we're talking about the bag versus the dream, okay? And you may be working your 9 to 5,
right?
And you feel like you just keep working for the man. There's no real love, energy.
Yeah, and you feel like you may have a bigger calling, and like God is telling you that you need to pursue your passion,
or not,
because it's either either the bag or the dream.
Should you do what you love in life or just follow your passion?
Or should you do something you're maybe not as fond of just to get that shmoney and be stable?
Shmoney. It's a very hard concept to come by. It's hard to break down. Should I do something that provides security, or should I do something that makes my heart full? And will I be getting financially stable from that?
Right, so let's be real. Money is important, and you need to eat, live, and survive.
Okay? It's a lot that goes into it, because we can sit here and act like the dream is all that matters, but when it comes to making sure you're providing not only for yourself, but if you have a family, for your kids, it's important to know those things.
Right, and mental health is important just as much as making sure that you're surviving throughout the world with like money.
You're right. It all breaks down to the bag versus the dream.
Or the bag and the dream?
Can we do both? Can we do both? We're getting into it right now. Watch this episode. We're about to really break it down.
We about to dive in.
Oh. All right. Let's go.
Vision in the vibe.
So let's jump into some stats, because Tay, I know that's your part. You love that.
Girl, you know I got you. Okay, so let's dive right into it. So only 13% of people worldwide actually like going to work. And more than 70% of workers say they don't feel satisfied with their career choices. And did you know that 27% of workers surveyed said that they are not paid well, and 30% of those have seriously considered quitting their job within the last 3 months. Yeah, I believe it too, because honestly, you can relate. And one thing that I did find interesting is it says, as a person's weekly hours decrease, their feelings and happiness increase, which I can agree with, because you have more time for yourself.
Say that one more time for the people in the back.
So it says, as a person's weekly hours decrease, means the less time that you spend at work, your feelings of happiness are going to increase.
That is such a sad thought, to think that like less work makes you happy. That means you're literally struggling to go to work every day.
Right, but it also depends on, I guess, like what type of work you're doing. Like, are you passionate about what you're doing? Because you know how they say like your job shouldn't feel like work, because you love what you do. So we can talk about that, and that also goes into like the topic of the bag versus the dream.
Right, finding that happy medium is a hard place to center yourself around.
Right,
but let's get into the first question, y'all. The first question is, I need a rank. We're gonna rank it. You guys join in, rank with us. Okay, Tay, money, love, peace of mind, or family? Which is more important to you? Listed in order.
Okay, so in order, actually, peace of mind is number 1, then family, then love, then money. What about you?
Okay. When I see peace of mind, or I think of peace of mind, I also think of like spirituality. So that, of course, would have to be number 1. Then family second, which is right under God. And then, is it bad that I'm picking between love and money?
But honestly, although it depends on like what type of love. Like, are you talking about relationship, love with yourself, love with your relationship? See, like, love can also translate into family. Do you know what I mean?
Very true.
So it depends on like, is this like an intimate type of love? Like, there's a lot of different types of love out there, you know?
Yeah. When I'm thinking objectively, I'm thinking about people, and just, you know, in order to get to know people in regards to just humanity, you have to have a sense of love in your heart to be open. So then love, then money. But if I'm not thinking about that, then I'm just saying money then love.
I can agree with that, because love, when I thought about it, I thought it was more or less like just relationships with people that you really care about.
Right.
So, all right. So now that we went through that list of the order which we rank, money, love, peace of mind, or family, and let's talk about why is it so bad to work for someone else? Like, are there pros and cons of that? Because there are. And is it just a millennial thing? You know how they always say, like, millennials don't like working for other people. And I think it's also too, like, we could talk about the time period where we've seen a lot of people, like our parents' age, get laid off, and like their loyalty was kind of disrupted, and they was laid off after they put in so many hours, years for pensions, and they never received it. So I think that has a lot to do with that as well. And then also too, like social media, you get to see how attainable things are. It has its pros and cons, but more importantly, you can see how attainable things are, and it's easier for you to envision yourself in those shoes of, running your own life the way that you would like. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think when you think about putting yourself in a circumstance where you have control, everything just seems much easier. And that's where people get this idea that working for yourself is just gonna be the way to go, instead of working for someone else who dictates your hours, who dictates your life, who dictates what time you gotta sleep, eat, take your breaks.
Right.
But at the same time, I do feel like it's a millennial thing, because in the past, we have men who were the providers for the family, women, and we don't have to go into all that, but the reality is their foundation was based more on security and making sure that the family was secure. They didn't have the opportunity or the space to just go on a whim and just be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna follow my passion. I don't know if we're gonna have food on the table, but we'll just do what we do. But I feel like as a millennial in this day and age, or in this time frame, when you're in your 20s, 30s, like, you have more opportunity if you don't have any family or if you don't have any obligations to just try.
And I feel like even being aware of those, what you just said, is a lot more prevalent now than then. Even though they may feel like they may not have had as many obligations, they just weren't aware or they didn't know what they were capable of doing. So the next thing is, I guess, like, what's the pros and cons of working for someone else?
The pros and cons of working for someone else versus yourself.
Right.
I would say the pros for working for yourself: you create your own schedule. You can literally do your work from your room, your bed. You're able to dedicate more time to what you find important, not what your boss finds important. And that can really nurture not only figuring out more who you are, but allowing your business to grow. The con for working for yourself would be just, it takes a lot out of you. I think people think this is some easy task. Like, you have to be responsible. You have to be dedicated to that. You can very easily, just like with working out, fall off the wagon, and it's hard to get back again. And be broke. On that horse. Exactly.
Yeah, you broke.
This is real life situations.
Yeah. Right. And the thing is though, I think that people, like, the entrepreneurial life is very glamorized. People talk about that a lot. But the one thing that I can say is I can talk about the pros and cons of working for someone else. But the pros are, you get to learn on someone else's dime.
Amen.
So that being said, you don't have to test things out for yourself, and there's also something where you can do entrepreneurship within your company. So that's a really good way to test and see if you like running things by yourself, if you have the opportunity to have freedom to introduce new things to the company that you're working with. So that's a really good way to figure out things and see if you're about that life. And another thing is, the pros is, you can make connections that will set you up for when you want to launch your own business, or if you want to be an entrepreneur. So I think those are really good pros. And also healthcare. That steady paycheck.
Healthcare.
Yeah, the healthcare, that's no joke.
Benefits.
So, benefits, steady paycheck.
Taxes.
Yeah, taxes. And the cons, I guess, I mean, what cons do you have about, like, working, for someone else?
Just the fact that a lot of your time is taken away. So if you're really focused on creating, if you're, like, for instance, I'm an entrepreneur, but I also have a job, right? So a career, rather. So in doing that, it's hard to juggle sometimes, because when you get off the clock, you're going home to work on what other things you have. And sometimes that can be draining, but you have to be willing to put in that effort if you want to maintain both sides of your life.
Right. And I think too that and it's about this episode too, just not being burned out when you're pursuing your 9-to-5 or your career, but also trying to pursue your passion. So let's talk about that. So I guess, why are so many of us afraid to pursue our dreams?
A lot of people are afraid to pursue their dreams because of the limiting mindsets we set for ourselves. I feel like as we put so many boundaries on what we're capable of doing. Like if you imagine it, it can come to fruition. It's just about putting in that work and effort in order to make it truly come from your imagination and be put on paper and then be your reality, you know? I think we need to stop these limiting and like negative self-talk that we have, and that could be the difference in actually pursuing your dream.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, because 9 times out of 10, if we are usually the people that talk ourselves out of doing what we want to do. So with that being said, like, I think people are afraid to pursue their dreams just because they feel like we just make excuses of what society thinks, but they're not that, like, first of all, their opinion is irrelevant. If something is put into your heart that God has put into you, and you're supposed to birth that dream or birth that goal or vision that he has placed inside of you, like, who are you to listen to someone else who's not God? So like, with that being said, I don't feel like the thing is like you're too old, like you're too young, like you're black, you're a female, or you don't have enough life experience. Freaking Kylie Jenner may not have a lot of life experience, but she knows what she's like. She just freaking sold a $1 billion company.
Exactly.
For her lipstick line. So
although her foundation is different, and she's been able to have a group of people who don't have that limiting mindset, have allowed themselves to think beyond and expand, you know, the way they think. So I really, for instance, if you live in a household where your parents either only graduated from high school, they never went to college, and they have a background that, you know, they're based on having that security that we were talking about in the beginning of the episode, they sort of instill in you, do something that's safe. Right.
And yeah, that goes back to like having the mindset. So number one, surround yourself by people who don't have a limiting mindset. And going back to what we were saying about the pros and cons, one thing that I thought about was when you work for yourself, you do not have a ceiling. So with that being said, you don't have a ceiling with your mindset, your capital, or whatever you're trying to do. And I feel like a lot of people, they have a dream, but they are not surrounded by people with a big enough vision to match theirs, and that's going to be more or less like the downfall of them actually going after what they've been called to do. And I feel like that's a really big issue.
Right. I want to always be surrounded by people, or I urge myself to try to be surrounded by people who have bigger and better mindsets than me.
Right.
So that, okay, I can see what you're doing. The vibration and the energy that you bring to the room makes me want to just have the same type of grind. And I want to make sure that she sort of touched on the types of negative language. I want you to reiterate the type of verbiage that people say, so that if you're listening, you can see, do I say that?
Right.
Is that limiting? How can we revert that to positive?
Right.
So say some negative so that we can figure out a way to, how can I positively attack that?
Right. Okay, so maybe you feel like you don't have enough money to start. So in order to, first of all, making an excuse to start is just, number one, the worst thing that you could possibly do, because you're prolonging the process of you leaping towards like what your goals and dreams are, and then also more or less like getting to that next elevation or being elevated to the next level. So anything that is going to stop you from starting, like whether it be like money or
people,
family, age, gender, race, like what I did say, money, like financial status or where you live, location, there's always a way to get out. I personally think there's just been so many stories of people that have been born in like really, really
tough situations
or like bad upbringings, and they've managed to get out. So,
and a way essentially for you guys at home to really combat that negative self-talk, what I believe in, again, positive vibrations, high energy. If you're spiritual, you believe in God and everything, and you believe in having that good foundation. Something that I do every morning, and we're probably gonna have episodes on this, but like mantras, right? If you feel like you don't have enough money, I love saying in the morning, I'm wealthy, I can afford it. I'm already putting into the air, I may not have that much pennies right now, but I know I'm wealthy, I can afford it. I'm allowing that energy of money to come towards me. I have like a list of mantras. If you guys are down, let us know in the comments. I'll post a list of mantras. And one thing that another mantra of mine is, I have more than enough time and more than enough energy.
Yeah, you do say that. I hear her saying that all the time. And I just feel like when you speak things, like your tongue is so powerful. When you speak things that are positive into the atmosphere, you're more or less you're more likely to live a positive life. But if you're always complaining or being a negative Nancy, so to speak, like you are going to be struggling. So
Struggling, huh?
so I know you mentioned this too. Tiffany Latoy.
Yes, shout out to you, girl, on Instagram. We see you doing your thing. We saw your post that says, "Dear bosses, ... please stop telling people to quit their jobs. That shit is irresponsible."
It honestly is irresponsible. Now, let me tell you, I have been irresponsible. I have quit. I've done that whole leap of faith thing, and granted, it was a very great learning experience, but it's just not realistic unless you have some things lined up. And honestly, if you are going to take that leap of faith, your mindset needs to be at that point where you're making a leap of faith. Like, don't just do it because you feel like you just want some freedom to work on what you want. Unless you're about to put in the grind to do it, then if that's what you're called to do, then yes. But for the rest of us who got stuff to do and we got bills to pay and all that good stuff, like, don't do it. It's irresponsible. You need to have something lined up until you're able to until you're able to replace your income, like your monthly income, for 3 months consistently, then you don't need to be doing that.
Right. And I mean, there may be some people listening to this podcast to act as a devil's advocate who are like, "Girl, you're tripping. Like, how is it irresponsible for me to want to pursue my dream? Y'all are telling us to be positive, but you're not positively thinking out the box." Well, sis, calm down, okay? I don't think she's necessarily saying that. I think what we're saying is just have not a backup plan, because that should be your plan to succeed, but rather set yourself up for success by having a plan to get out of your current situation. And I really do believe if you do have a 9 to 5, if you're willing to put in that extra effort, you can do both. But here are some actionable steps to take place if you want to be able to identify what you should do next. First, the way to identify your purpose is the main first step. If you are saying, okay, I want the bag, but I also have a dream, what is that dream? What is the key to that?
So to identify your purpose, you first of all need to know who you are, sis and sir. You need to understand who you are, because I just feel like you're not going to be able to move forward if you don't have a clear understanding about who you are, what you want out of your life. And honestly, a good way to identify that is to just try new things.
Exploration.
So yeah, you have to explore, and you cannot be afraid to explore. The more things you try, even if you may not like those things, you know what you don't like. So it's the same situation as like an internship. So you go to an internship to see if you like working in that field before you actually go out and graduate. But if you like it, cool, you found something that you like that you never knew. But if you don't like it, you know what you're not about to do.
Exactly.
Same thing applies to dating. So
take baby steps.
Yeah, you got to take baby steps.
Be patient with yourself. Sit down and write a list of things you're talented at or good at in general without reservation.
Yeah.
Like, be as, like, write anything you want without thinking, oh, I feel stupid. Oh, I can't do that. Take that out. Just write it down.
Yeah. So one thing that I can say is Steve Harvey, he's a pretty good motivational speaker, and he has some good books. But one thing that I did realize what he was saying is he encouraged everyone in the audience to write down 300 things that they wanted. Most people don't have the mental capacity to write down 300 things. They might get to like 150 and then they just be like, I can't think of anything else. But he was saying that once you get past that 300 threshold, then your creativity and your imagination becomes limitless. And I feel like once you get to a certain point, especially when you're being wrapped up in work and you're trying to do the 9 to 5 thing and pursue something else, that you don't allow yourself enough creativity to thrive, to see yourself into something that, number one, that you can't do by yourself, that has to only be ordained by God, and two, you're just kind of selling yourself short because your vision is not big enough. So for everyone that's listening, God can open any door for you, period. That's just what it is. So you shouldn't really put any type of limitations on that. So,
and with the 300 goals thing, I know it can sound daunting, right? When we hear a task like that, you say, how am I supposed to do that? How did she do that? I don't need. But the thing is, it takes a minute, but you'll eventually get there. Having patience with yourself and just allowing yourself to be consistent and stay the course. Just like in a track meet, You cannot win a track meet if you don't follow all the way through.
Right.
I don't know if you saw this one clip on Instagram where this girl from Barbados, she was running a track meet. These two other women, they were about to hold hands, hold it in victory. But then the lady from Barbados just come right past them because she followed through. She stayed the course. Just stay the course and you'll be able to get there. And also, I really think you need to take advantage of the people around you.
Right.
Again, don't go to anyone who has negative self-talk, but try to reach out to a therapist, a guidance counselor, sort out some of your emotions and figure out, what do I want?
Right. And like we said too, like age ain't nothing but a number.
Age ain't nothing but a number.
R.I.P. to R. Kelly.
Oh, that was R. Kelly? That's not R. Kelly.
Yeah, but
it was Pleasure P.
Oh, that's the song you were. That's the song that you were referring to. I thought you were talking about the Aaliyah song.
Oh, that'd have been awkward.
Anyways, so. Anyways, age ain't nothing but a number. Do not let it hold you back.
Yes.
And that goes for, we spoke on this before, but that goes for being too young and also feeling like you may be being too old. And going back to what you said about guidance counselor or therapist, you might not be able to afford that, but you have friends. So, but you need to make sure that
the right
friends that you can confide in, that won't judge you, that will encourage you to have those visions.
Also, I think what's really important is that planning is your best friend, ladies and gents. Identify what it will take or require to get where you need to be, and are you willing to make that sacrifice?
Right. And I feel like you won't know until you actually go for it, but that is why it's important to have a blueprint for your dream in business rather than building someone else's dream in business. So this goes back to working for the man or working for yourself. You need to have a plan for yourself, but you also need to have a plan on how you're going to excel in your career, because I feel like you need to have both. It's not always good to have just one stream of income. Sorry to break it to you. But on the way to building your secondary stream of income, whether it be second or third or whatever, you need to have a plan and a blueprint and strategic guidelines and dates for when things need to be accomplished. And I feel like that's super important, because if you don't, then you're not going to really be productive. And I feel like when you're not productive, you're kind of in a slump and you are back at square one. And then that's when you're not productive towards your dream, you go back to the mindset of coming up with excuses as to why you shouldn't start.
Right. And I mean, having goals, having that, as she said, blueprint is really essential. Like, if you're working out, you have a goal, and you have different workouts every single day that you have to achieve.
Exactly.
So it's literally just that minute breakdown that you do that could be all the difference in your next step. Another important thing is how to identify what success looks like to you, so you can always feel like the richest person in the room.
And be confident, because honestly, I'm not even gonna lie, when I feel confident and I walk into a room, like, it's a whole different
strut, honey.
Like you walk in there, you own it, like no one can tell you anything. And I feel like that is goals right there. So you need to understand what success looks like for you, because everyone's success mindset or vision looks completely different.
And that's why social media at times can be so toxic. If you have a habit of looking at other people and saying, wow, I should be doing this, why am I not, here? Then that's when it becomes limiting for you, because you start saying to yourself, I'm not doing this, and you get hard on yourself, and negative talk starts to insert its way into your mind. So really just focus on what success looks like to you. Are you achieving what you see as success?
Right.
Are you making those movements to identify the next step in your life?
Exactly. And with that being said, you need to have, and I cannot stress this enough, you need to have a team of support and accountability partner. I was going to say partner.
Don't say partner, girl. Okay.
All right, new word, partner. We need to have an accountability partner. Number one, it is very hard to find a legitimate accountability partner.
Okay.
So with that being said, when you do have one, you should not take that person for granted, because an accountability partner will help you level and will push you into different arenas or areas that you have probably maybe want to try, but you never really have gotten there by yourself.
An example for that is literally this relationship right here. The way we met is so organic, and if you listen to our first episode, you can go back and hear that. But it's just so interesting how forming these relationships can literally take you to the next step in your life if you're with someone who's positive, if you're with someone who has aligned goals. And another important thing for you guys, this sort of goes to 2020 as a whole, but figure out your word for 2020, sis.
Yes.
What is your word for 2020? And are you living by that word every single day? Right. What's your word, Tay?
My word is to, God, you put me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
It's to be intentional.
Intentional. Why intentional?
Because I just feel like okay, first of all, time goes by way too fast. So with that being said, I just feel like I have lost a lot of time without being intentional about my steps. And to be strategic about my steps, I feel like if I were to have been intentional about the steps that I've made in the past, I would be a little bit further. And I don't regret that, but it's just something that I've learned along the way. And I feel like if you're intentional about what you're doing, it's easy to make decisions because you know exactly where you're going.
Right. My word is alignment. I feel like sometimes in the past I've allowed myself to be part of a lot of situations, partnerships, that weren't necessarily fully benefiting me. It wasn't a mutually beneficial relationship. And I fell short in that situation because I was giving so much, but not receiving enough. And that can even be in your job. So you can relate to that. I think when you create a word and you have self-reflection, again, it all comes back to, are you really reflecting on who you are, what you want? You'll be able to propel. It's crazy how many doors will open for you once you start honing in on who you are and what you want to provide for the world. Now, there's a difference between passive and passion income.
Right, so we're going to actually listen to a clip right now from Dana Chanel. If you haven't heard her, look her up on Instagram. She always drops amazing gems. So we're going to enter that clip right here.
Everyone under the age of 30 is super souped up on passion before they put something in place to make sure they are financially sustainable. And I'm going to be 100% honest, it sounds fun, it sounds beautiful, and it looks good on TV and it looks good on YouTube, but it's very dangerous. And that's why this thing called entrepreneurship, someone who's focused just on passion and putting their creativity towards something and literally leaving their heart on a stage or leaving their heart on a piece of music or it can be detrimental to someone's confidence. And so they start going crazy like, oh, I don't like my voice anymore, I don't like my body. And I'm just like, okay, look, listen. Here's the plan. The first thing we need to do is you are working a 9 to 5. Let's first replace that 9 to 5 with something that's profitable, that you don't have to have someone to want it or like it or be obsessed with it to pay you money in exchange for your creativity, your mind, and your labor.
Give me an example.
So, for example, let's say someone's a school teacher. Anybody out here know what the average salary of a school teacher is?
Way too low for what they're instilling in our generations and humankind.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we're going to do. And this is what I do with young people all the time because I don't think they understand it. Sometimes people will go for their passion without looking at the profitability, which means that now when you're going to do things that you enjoy out of life, you're going to be very limited. You're going to be very unhappy doing what you're passionate about, which then warps your mind. So let's just do the math real quick. Let's say somebody makes $40,000 a year, right? Let's divide that by 12, which means $3,333 a month, and let's divide that by 30. You have to work your business plan from back to front. Now, older people understand that because they have real responsibilities where you can't just skip out on bills. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul for too much longer, right? So what ends up happening is people who over the age of 30, they're like, you know what? Give me a plan. I'm willing to go into whatever business I can make sure that I put food on the table that won't have me struggling or living paycheck to paycheck. Forget about passion. I just want to do what's good for my family. Us young people are a little bit backwards because we're inspired by social media and what's cool.
Right.
But it's saying right here, if I just have the salary of $40,000, okay, you literally live in paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
With, especially out here in LA and New York. I don't even know if you could do that in New York. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my thing is, instead of saying, hey, you know what, I love singing and I know that I can rap, you know what, I'm just going to make an album and just beg people to buy it, and you're struggling for album sales. If you're surviving right now off of $40,000, break that down to the lowest point of what is it now that you can do in business that I can literally exchange my value for your dollar just to make what I need, so I'm no longer splitting my time with a job and then trying to focus on my passion. So if you make $40,000 a year, you just have to make $115 a day to provide for yourself, which now means you now open this time of doing what you're passionate about. But once again, you sit here trying to sell your album for $9.99 and not even 2 people want to buy it because you don't know marketing or advertising.
Also, everyone streams everything for free, so they're like, why would I pay for you who I don't know?
My point exactly.
Yeah.
And so for millennials, what I say is forget your passion for the first 5 years of your business and don't act like you can't do it. Because you did it this entire time working a 9 to 5 or going to college that gave you a degree that didn't help you do anything. So you got 5 years in you.
Yeah.
Don't act like you don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so my thing is go into business where, one, you can maybe use your mom or your dad or your sister and actually create a need-based business like credit repair, tax preparation, something that your community needs, so that it's not a forced situation like give me your money,
Right.
and then use that to fund your passion.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do, and I'm just trying to make them understand and kind of giving people the blueprint for these need-based businesses.
Yeah. Oof. So much. I just wanna take that whole soundbite and just put it on repeat and have that be every new post on my feed for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Dana girl. You really dropped those gems. If you want to go follow her, make sure you do. She always provides such awesome content, right?
She does. She's really great, and I feel like it's really imperative that if you don't know who she is, find out who she is, because
Get to know, honey.
she is a very successful entrepreneur, and she gives really, really great tips for people of us, and especially women of color. So
Yeah.
going back to that, so everything is so easy to have like access to in this society. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, it comes down to this, and listen up. Passion without work is dead.
Say it again.
Passion without work is dead, y'all. It
Right.
will not be easy. I repeat, it will not be easy. Okay? If you want to take this journey, if you want to quit that 9 to 5 and really hone in on being an entrepreneur and going full force for what you want, understand it is not for the weak.
It is not.
I know you want to work your entrepreneurship thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, but you cannot have that happen without the sweat, the tears. You're going to be crying. You're going to be
Right.
hungry. You're going to say,
You can question, there's going to be a time where you're going to question what you're doing, and you're going to question and see, am I even doing the right thing? But you have to know, without anyone telling you that you are doing the right thing, and your timing will come.
yes. And when it comes to, again, reflection and understanding who you are, do things that serve the future version of yourself.
Right.
Whenever you're trying to think, what should I do next? Do things that serve the future version of yourself and makes you happy.
Right. And the biggest piece of advice that we can say is to be intentional with everything that you do in life. Every move, every conversation, every encounter, make it make sense with your future life plan. i.e., be intentional in having the blueprint that we talked about, and have an explanation as to why you say and do things that you choose to say and do.
Yes.
Eric Thomas, aka E.T., the street preacher or something like that.
Yes. Shout out to him. He's amazing.
He always stresses you need to understand the why to what you're doing things. If you do not have a why to what you're doing, you will always fall short, and you are probably going to be more prone to quit because you have no reasoning as to why you're doing it. So with that being said, always have a why. No matter what you're doing, you need to have a reasoning behind what you're doing.
Having intent is one of the most powerful attributes anyone can have. Like what I want you to do right now, as you're listening to this podcast, press pause real quick, but you gotta come back. Press pause. Write down your why. Why are you doing this? And what can help you with this is creating an elevator pitch for yourself.
Right.
It's always hard sometimes in the beginning figuring out, okay, what's my elevator pitch? Who am I serving? What can I actually do? What's my resume?
Right.
What am I offering? If you can break all those things down, it becomes more, I feel like what you want becomes more attainable because you're
It's
understanding
clear.
yourself. Exactly.
It's clear.
Clarity.
And the one thing that I can say is when you are so clear about what you want to do, and everyone understands, and you can clearly articulate your vision to somebody, a lot more things will be easier for you to receive because you're intentional, you're putting it into the atmosphere. People automatically know what you want to do, so when they see an opportunity that may relate to what you want to do, you're the
They'll
first
say,
person that comes to mind.
They'll call you.
Right. You need to set yourself up to be successful, and that also goes into, like you said, having a strong elevator speech, relaying that elevator speech to people, because I think women are very, like we talked about this earlier today, just like in like our personal conversations.
Shout out to Jay.
Yeah, shout out to Jay Leonard. But I think that women are so scared to
truly vocalize,
Yeah,
what they can do, what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a very powerful individual. I have a very bright, outgoing energy, and I'm very confident. But there are times where I go into rooms and I don't necessarily know how to present myself.
Mhm.
I sort of downplay
what
I
you
do.
Yeah.
And I bring a lot to the table, but I don't know how to necessarily articulate that in the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, without coming across as being cocky. But one thing that I can say is be humble, but you need to know when you can like put a little like spice, some hot sauce in the mix. Because if you don't do that, no one is going to speak up for you. And I have had to learn that, because there are certain things where, number one, your work should speak for itself. However, when they can't see your work, you need to speak for yourself. So that's one thing that I definitely can say.
That was a gem, y'all. That was a gem. That's fact.
It is true. If they can't see your work, you need to speak up, because no one's gonna do it for you.
So practice. Go in the mirror. Talk to yourself. Like, figure out, okay, how can I say this? Hi, my name is Barmel Lyons. I do this, this, and this. I do, look at your resume and really break it down, because that will get you into so many crazy doors.
Right.
And once you get in them, let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I felt like we talked about a lot in such a short amount of time.
But I feel like it was really important information that
powerful.
It was very powerful. So one thing that we do want to leave you guys with is book references, because we find that when people are giving advice, they may be like, be consistent, be persistent, don't give up. But they don't tell you, like, they don't give you actionable tips of what you should be doing.
Which we did.
Yeah, which we did. But some more actionable tips is things that you can do on your own time, i.e. reading a book.
And if you don't like reading, like actually putting eyes to paper, you can have Audible.
Which I love.
Shout out to Audible. Sponsor us.
No
Anyways. All right, let's go to the list.
Yeah.
All right, first book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Breaking that mentality that we were talking about.
Yeah.
But Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what the rich teach their kids
About
versus
money, yeah.
Exactly. That's a good book.
It is a very good book. It is by Robert T. Kiyosaki. And then I know you like this book, Think and Grow Rich.
I have it right here. Think and Grow Rich. This is literally a book you're going to have to read multiple times, folks.
Mm-hmm.
It
Same
is
thing,
so good. I mean, it basically breaks down things that you should say. Having like basically a money statement or a money mantra that you read to yourself, and it helps you attain a certain amount. It talks about imagination and how that is so powerful. It talks about a lot of things we covered today.
Right.
So please invest. Okay, if you're willing to quit your job, or if you're thinking about it, you should be willing to invest in yourself and take these steps in order to decide what's the right move for you.
Right.
One thing I do want to say before we actually wrap up is how to build a business while working your 9 to 5.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do that.
We're gonna just show you a quick clip of this, but Tatiana O'Hara, I hope I said your name right. She put this on Instagram, and I feel like it's so valuable that I want to say it before we leave. Right? 1, create a solid morning and evening routine before and after work. When you've scheduled time to work on your business and actually open yourself up during these times, you'll get more done. Intentionality, as we said, is key.
Right.
Having a routine also gives more control over your day.
And then the next one is step 2 is know what you need to get done. What are the actions that you need to take that will equal revenue? And you need to look at things, and you need to look at things in the eye of like a business expense. So what is it going to take for you to make equal revenue? Have a specific plan and use that as your guide during your allotted work times. And if you're unsure about what you should be working on, hire a coach or consultant.
And that's where it comes to reaching out to guidance counselors, reaching out to people who are able to help build you up as opposed to tearing you down.
Right.
And then number 3, maximize your time at your 9 to 5, honey.
Yes.
Okay, make business related calls during your commute to and from work.
Yes.
Use your lunch break to plan and strategize. You can't create more hours in your day, but you can make better use of them. Hallelujah. Right. Yes. That was a Shabbat. Woo! What resources are available at your job, and will they help you build your business? And that goes into what Tay was saying. Like, if you are able to network with people at your job and create a list of contacts that you can utilize in your side business, you just came up on a check.
When I tell you referrals are like amazing. They're the number one source of consistent business. Referrals. If you're able to build a Rolodex of people that will invest into what you have or have some sort of interest in what you have going on or what you're trying to pursue, that is a really, that's a golden ticket.
Exactly. And lastly, number 4, honey.
So consistent effort. It may feel like day to day you aren't making much progress. It is the sum of all the small actions that will get you to the end goal. Discipline is paramount. Make sure that your actions align with what you say that you want. And I feel like most people want things, but their actions don't say that they want
that.
them.
Follow through is so weak. And it's not for the weak. Do we have to go back to what we said? Okay, this is not for the weak. Discipline is necessary. Writing out is necessary. Following through will get you necessary. And it will get you to that next step. So I hope you take into account what we said. I hope you really absorb this information. And if you want to get the bag versus the dream, I mean, it can honestly, do you think it has to be the bag versus the dream?
I think you can have both. Don't be a Shaquille O'Neal on that free throw. You need to follow through, sis. You can definitely have both, and we just want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. If you guys have any requests or suggestions on topics that you think we should discuss on the episode, feel free to DM us or message us. You can follow us on Instagram at thevisionandvibes, and the email address is thevisionandvibes@gmail.com.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
You'll be able to flow. But thank you again so much for listening and tuning in to The Vision
and the Vibes. We got the vision and the vibes. We got the vision and the vibes.
Bye, y'all.